Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki, oh, glories to the symbol of Odisha, glories to Shishi, Guru and Go Ranga, Go Premanand, Hari, Go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So we are continuing on with Chapter 9 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, text number 13, and I'll read 14 as well. The chapter is entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. Brajisnubhirya parito virajite. Brajisnubhirya parito virajite. Vasadvimana valibhir mahatmana. Vidyotamana pramadotama jukti. Vidyotamana pramadotama jukti. Savijuda pravalibhyatanva. Savijuda pravalibhyatanva. Brajisnubhirya parito virajate. Brajisnubhirya parito virajate. Sadvimana valibhir mahatmana. Abravaniviryatanva.
Rajishnubhirya parito virajate.
Rajishnubhirya parito virajate.
Lasabhimana valibhir mahatmana.
Lasabhimana valibhir mahatmana.
Vidyottamanaha brahmadottamabhyubhi.
Vidyottamana paramottamadhyubhi.
Savidyutabhra valibhiryatanavaha.
Svayurabhara valibhiryatanavaha. Rajishnubhirya parito virajate. Rajishnubhirya parito virajate. Lasabhimana valibhir mahatmanam. Lasabhimana valibhir mahatmanam. Vidyotmana paramatottamabhyubhi. Svadyurabhara valibhiryatanava. Svadyurabhara valibhiryatanava. Rajishnubhirya parito virajate. Lasabhimana valibhir mahatmanam. Vidyotmana paramatottamabhyubhi. Svadyurabhara valibhiryatanava.
Ladies.
Rajishnubhirya parito virajate. Lasabhimana valibhir mahatmanam. Vidyottamana paramottamadhyubhi. Svayurabhara valibhiryatanava.
Brajishnubhi.
Rajishnubhi.
By the glowing. Ya. The Vaikuntha lokas. Parita. Surrounded by. Virajate. Thus situated. Lasa. Brilliant. Vinana. Airplanes. Avalibi. Assemblage. Maha Atmanam. Of the great devotees of the Lord. Vidyotmana. Beautiful like lightning. Brahmada. Ladies. Uttama. Celestial. Adhubi. By complexion. Savidyut. With electric lightning. Apravalabi. With clouds in the sky. Yata. As it were. Nava. The sky. Translation. The Vaikuntha planets are also surrounded by various airplanes, all glowing and brilliantly situated. These airplanes belong to the great Mahatmas or devotees of the Lord. The ladies are as beautiful as lightning because of their celestial complexions, and all these combined together appear just like the sky, decorated with both clouds and lightning. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It appears that in the Vaikuntha planets there are also airplanes brilliantly glowing, and are occupied by the great devotees of the Lord, with the ladies' celestial beauty as brilliant as lightning. As there are airplanes, so there must be different types of carriages like airplanes, but they may not be driven machines as we have experienced in this world, because everything is of the same nature of eternity, bliss and knowledge. The airplanes and carriages are of the same quality as Brahman. Although there is nothing except Brahman, one should not mistakenly think that there is only void and no variegatedness. Thinking like that is due to a full knowledge. Otherwise, no one would have such a misconception of voidness in Brahman. As there are airplanes, ladies and gentlemen, So there must be cities and houses and everything else just suitable to particular planets. One should not carry the ideas of imperfection from this world to the transcendental world and not take into consideration the nature of the atmosphere as completely free from the influence of time, etc., as described previously. Akyanat viram tasya jananjana sulakaya chaksul nilatunya tasmai shri kavai namaha mukam karori vachalam pampum langate girim yat kripatam mande shri punyatane durgame bharimandasya skalapate katir muhusvaki vaisyanana shantashatvalambanam. So we have this beautiful sloka today where Lord Krishna is revealing the Vaikuntha Loka planets to Lord Brahma. Of course, just as a refresh, we know that the Vaikuntha planets are in the spiritual part of the universe and are wonderfully glowing, effulgent planets where liberated souls go. So we find a little bit more about Vaikuntha during the shlokas here. Lord Brahma is lamenting that how not enough attention is paid to the description of Vaikuntha Loka, that people are so immersed in the material world talking about mundane events that are very, very temporary and are of no significance to the living entity as far as his eternality goes, yet the Vaikuntha descriptions, which are unlimited, are ignored. So the first realization that I come across here of Vaikuntha reading this translation is the effortlessness of everything. That everything is just like a song remember that song, Garuda, everything is beautiful in its own way. So everything in Vaikuntha is beautiful without any effort at all. It's natural. Here in the material world, if you want beauty, you want to have some nice objects, there is so much effort that you have to go through. Just like, for instance, we are talking about planes in the sky. So in the material world, we know that we have the big factories where they have to import steel, which they get out of the ground, and then they mold it, hot flames, heavy environment. They make all these other different types of elements, types of steel for the motors, electric wires and generators and so forth. And they generate a lot of toxic substances to go through that process, and it's a lot of toil. And of course then these planes, because they're so heavy, they need to fly, so they've got fuel. So aviation fuel, so the fossil fuels are being burned up so the planes fly in the sky and cause a whole lot of toxic pollution. See, the example just fell upon us the other day, 2 days ago. I don't know if you're all here in class, but we had that example of that crop duster. Were you there when it was going past during Krishna Kirtan's class? Just like this, as it turned around the corner. It was it was coming round, so it was just a very ungainly machine that it was doing something probably pretty dubious. I don't know what sort of substances was spraying on the bananas there. We're just hoping that the wind is blowing that way and keeping it there. But then it was coming around and then spraying and going back again. Very, very ungainly and very cumbersome. These days it's almost like outdated. But this is the material world. This is just an example of what we go through. Just like everything that we have, motor cars, they're troublesome. It's all right to have a car, But if you have a brand new car, you have to spend a lot of money. You have to work hard. If you have an old car, then it breaks down on you. But in Vaikuntha, because everything is in the service of the Lord and everything is spiritual, then everything is wonderful. Just like the planes, they're no effort at all. Everybody can own a plane. It says here the sages and the Mahatmas, they're all flying in their airplanes, and the planes are made of lapis lazuli, made of gold, made of emeralds, and they fly at will, by mantras. And in Vaikuntha, what is Vaikuntha means there's no anxiety, where everyone can go wherever they like. They can traverse the whole of the Vaikuntha Loka, whereas in the material world, you have to have permission to go anywhere. These days particularly, that you can't go anywhere without having some sort of form or a visa or something. But the Vaikuntha inhabitants are free to go wherever they like. And there's talking about the beautiful celestial ladies here. So they're the wives, the husbands, and they're described. It's actually, I'm just looking at the word for word here. It's got Uttama, and in this sense it says celestial, but actually Uttama means the best, the ultimate. So the wives of the husbands there in Vaikuntha Loka, they're many times more beautiful than the celestial ladies in the material, celestial demigod ladies in the material world. So when they're travelling, it's compared here that you have dark clouds and lightning simultaneously. So just flashing to mind that the other day in the United States they had a bolt of lightning that went across 500 kilometres, 500 miles, just simultaneously created the world record. So I just imagine these flashes of lightning in Vaikuntha, all these beautiful celestial ladies. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the third canto, the next canto, which we'll get to in a few months, in the 15th chapter, it tells us a little bit more about the Vaikuntha planets, and particularly about, elaborates about the women of Vaikuntha. It's described here in text 20, that the airplanes are crowded out by the wives and consorts with large hips and beautiful smiling faces. And the men, although being within close proximity of such beautiful ladies, because of their engaging mind fully in the service of the Supreme Lord, they cannot be stimulated by passion of the mirth and the beautiful charms of the ladies. So their divine love for Krishna, for the Supreme Lord. I won't mention Krishna because it's actually Narayan. So here it's quite interesting that in all the purports, Srila Prabhupada usually refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead here. So their love for the Supreme Lord was that purity of their hearts, so there's no room for lust at all in their hearts and no lusty desires. And of course we know that in the material world the lusty desires are just this perverted reflection of this pure love that is there, that is meant for Krishna. So the planes there flying past, the Vaikuntha is a lovely place full of palaces and gardens and wonderful parks and so many beautiful scented flowers and trees. It's said that when these planes are flying past, the scent from these gardens comes wafting up into the sky. And because the residents are so busy chanting the holy names of the Lord in their airplanes, they see that these beautiful scents are a distraction, and they're annoyed by this wonderful smell, particularly the Madhavi flower is mentioned, the honey-scented flower that just permeates all the parks and gardens of Vaikuntha. So and then of course there's the bees and the birds and all the different wonderful creatures chirping. And it's said that when the king of the bees starts humming, he's describing the glories of the Lord. So all the other birds stop to listen to the humming of the bee. So Prabhupada, Prabhupada concludes the purport there by saying that the residents of Vaikuntha have such a high standard of life, so there is no need for them to look for any material pleasure that is there in the material world. Of course, we know that the highest pleasure in the material world, the biggest trap, is the pleasure from having sex. So they're completely liberated, so they're travelling with their wives. So the ladies in Vaikuntha planets, text 21 continues that they're as beautiful as the goddess of fortune herself. Such transcendently beautiful ladies, their heads playing with lotuses on their legs, their bangles are tinkling, and sometimes they can be seen sweeping the marble walls of the palace of Lord Vishnu in order to receive the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the famous activity that the goddesses of fortune by Vaikuntha are performing, that even though all the materials are completely spiritual, everything is made of, like Srila Prabhupada says, everything is Brahman, everything is spiritual substance, and there is hardly any dust. Still, out of the attitude of service to the Lord, the ladies are refreshing the walls. That can be compared sometimes when we have a chamra and a whisk, and we're whisking not only the Supreme Lord, but the representative of the Supreme Lord. I remember when Srila Prabhupada was in Melbourne, there was Yaso and Gopinath on either side, whisking Srila Prabhupada. It's not like you're keeping the flies away. I hope not anyway, because you might just whisk a little bit too close to the face of the spiritual master and create some discomfort. But it's just the service attitude that you're actually fanning the spiritual master. Actually, I'll do a detraction. I'll squirrel off here for a second. I just remember this story about my good friend Gaura Shakti. He was on New Vrindavan, Prabhupada disciple. I hung out with him in Jagannath Puri for a while, and he was talking about one Rath Yatra they went to in New York, and they'd been working hard all morning trying to get the Rath Yatra cart together, and he found a nice little place under one of the carts where he could sit there and nobody could see, and then he was being pulled along and everybody was chanting, and he was in ecstasy. He was right under the deities. And then all of a sudden there's just all this kerfuffle, all this commotion, and Srila Prabhupada pulls up in his car, and then they escort Srila Prabhupada out, and he was sitting right behind Srila Prabhupada's seat. That's where his little hiding spot was. So then he goes, quick, give me a chamra. So someone gave him a chamra, and he started to fan Srila Prabhupada with the chamra there. So he got the mercy. So anyway, so they do this to try to achieve the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in the Brahma Samhita, Srila Prabhupada mentions that with Govinda and Goloka Vrindavan, it says that Lakshmi Sahasrata Sambramase Pramanam, that there's myriads of gopis, loving gopis, that are serving Lord Krishna with love and devotion, without consorts. They have a personal service. So it's not quite the same as that in Vaikuntha, that the goddesses of fortune there, they're not personal consorts of Sri Krishna, but they're the wives of all the husbands. And their service, as I said, is to sweep all the, to serve the Lord, and if they've not got service, then they'll clean all the walls. So their families engage in the sweeping of the floor and walls, the marble walls. So, nevertheless, that mood that is there is the mood of the goddess of fortune, that they're completely attracted to the Supreme Lord. So we have the goddess of fortune in the material world here, that she's always serving Lotus Feet Lord Vishnu. She's married to the Lord. And the materialists, they worship the goddess of fortune because everybody wants the blessing of the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. So how many Lakshmi Narayan temples are there in India? Probably quite a few in the south of India, would that be right? So a lot. So they're worshipping Lakshmi Narayan so they can get some benediction. But it's said that actually another name for goddess of fortune is Chanchala, that she's flickering, that if she's not serving the Lord, she's easily distracted. So the living entities are trying to attract her with the worship and the service. And even though they may get some benediction, but because of the flickering nature of Chanchala, that benediction can disappear very quickly. So material wealth is very difficult to keep because actually they can disappear at any point in time because Lakshmi, goddess fortune, that she's only totally absorbed in the service of the Lord. So in the purport here, Prabhupada also explains that the materialist, the impersonalists, they mistake the Brahman for being just very, very clinically just being absence of any activity whatsoever, no variegatedness. I think variegatedness is the only time I ever hear that word is when I see it in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada uses that word so many times. Variegatedness means that there is so much that is there. So the impersonalists are actually very unfortunate to not understand this. Of course, their conception is that the idea of liberation means that you give up all the variety of sense gratification that is there in the material world, and you deny it and you actually become immersed in the Brahman effulgence that is there. So they call it the Brahman. We call it the Brahman effulgence because we know that Brahman is coming from the Supreme Lord. And of course in the Bhagavatam it states Brahmati Bhagavaniti Samjite, that this Brahman effulgence is only the first aspect of the God realization, that it's beyond it. But because impersonalists want to merge with the Brahman, they miss out on all the variegatedness, and it's quite illogical actually, because if you've got so much variety in the material world, then the material world is just a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So there must be so much more variety in the spiritual world than it is here. But the impersonalists, they come to grief because they don't understand the nature of the spiritual world. Just like we said, there's marble palaces in Vaikuntha, or there's planes that are made of lapis lazuli and emeralds flying around. So they say, how is these material things? Marble's material. In the material world it is material. We get the marble, we have to once again dig it out of the ground, shape it, cut it, drill it, transport it, make sure it fits, everything is perfect. It's a lot of effort. So again, it's that effort that is there in the material world. They say, well, the spiritual world they can't be. But actually, it's all there, it's the Lord's energy. So by the Lord's will, all this can manifest. Just like we have examples. There's a very beautiful example with Indraduna Maharaj. Beautiful story that he narrated, that when Krishna left Gokul, where he was born, and the whole village moved to Vrindavan, while I was sleeping that night, Vishvakarma came and he built Vrindavan. He built with so many demigods and architects and builders. They built a palace for Nanda Maharaj. They built beautiful groves and forests and houses for all the inhabitants, and they had the names on the houses, so when they woke up in the morning, they knew which house everybody lived in. They did it all in one night, thousands of them. So this is the spiritual energy of the law. So the materialists, they cannot understand the consciousness that the variegatedness is there. So certainly in Vaikuntha, it's just unlimited. Just like, for instance, the airplanes, like it said, that they glow. We have the trees and the plants and the rocks, and they're all conscious. So everything that is spiritual and material in us, everything that is there, all the energy in the material world is spiritual, it doesn't matter what it is. So it's there for the Lord's service. So in that planet where they say that one can take the same shape as the Lord, so it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the same human shape as the Lord. Of course, there are so many Vaikuntha residents that worship the Lord, and then they take the same body as the Lord, but there are other, because the Lord takes birth in so many species of life, we can understand there's 8,400,000 species, so in our practical experience, we have seen that the Lord's taken birth in so many different species, like he's taken birth as a lion, tortoise, he's incarnated as fish, swan, a boar, horse, and of course there are so many other different incarnations that we don't know about. So those devotees that actually worship these particular incarnations of the Lord, they can take birth in Vaikuntha in those same forms as the Lord. So therefore Vaikuntha is resplendent with all the different forms of the servants there of the Lord, the devotees, and they have so many different shapes. There's so much different variegatedness there. And not only that, the residents, if they worship forms of demigods as well, like Indra, Chandra, Vayu, Sun and Surya, they take birth as them. But that's not the demigods that we know that are in charge of the material world, because there are other demigods that are representatives of the Lord, incarnations of the Lord in the higher planets that are also Indra, Chandra, Vayu. So those residents of the planets that worship those particular forms of the demigods, they are the Supreme Lord, and they get to take those forms. And not only that, the residents of Vaikuntha, it's said that in general the residents of Vaikuntha have this beautiful hue, grey hue, and they wear golden clothes, and they have 4 arms. So Mukunda Maharaj was elaborately describing the 4 arms yesterday, how they're connected to the shoulder, and they all swing around and they work simultaneously. It's beyond our comprehension, but Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that the residents there, they not only have 4 arms, but there's 8 arms, 12 arms, 100 arms, 1,000 arms. So it's just unlimited there. So you see, these are not only that, but some have 4 heads too, or 8 heads, or so many different heads. So this is the residents of Vaikuntha. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam reader, it's said that actually they can change their shape at will. So remember that? Kumar, what's his name? Gopi Kumar, he was walking along and all of a sudden something came tumbling out of the sky and changed his shape into a 4-armed Vaishnav form and starts walking along. So, so this is the beautiful Vaikuntha Loka. It's amazing that you can travel anywhere. So in the world, I'm pretty stuck on that, because for those people who like to travel, we don't like to be restricted too much, and of course the last couple of years we've been restricted, so it's been playing on our minds. So in the world, you sometimes say, well, where can I travel to? Of course we all want to go to Vrindavan, we want to go to Mayapur, but generally people, they want to go somewhere, they want to go on a pleasure cruise. So they take a boat ride, or they take a plane ride to some place, Or it's like one of my bucket lists is the Trans-Siberian Railway to go across the top of the world there. So what to speak? So this is here, and it's an effort. You have to book your ticket, and you have to hopefully that there's no war, or there's no border restriction, there's no new disease that breaks out, or whatever happens, that your country's getting on well with that country and you're able to do it. So what to speak if this is on this planet, what to speak if we can travel to the other planets in this universe? And this is delineated in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Kadama Muni in Devahudi. Just because he performed so many austerities at Devahudi, his wife served him very nicely, and she was the daughter of Swami Manu, she was a queen, a princess. So he felt sorry for her, so he organised this beautiful spaceship, and they travelled all over the universe. They went to so many places in this universe that from one place to another, the time just flew past. It says hundreds of celestial years just flew past while they were going to all these places, and then all of a sudden Kadama Muni realised that my time is becoming limited, and then he went back to perform his austerities. So this is in this particular universe. Then we have all the other different universes with this Mahatattva. Said that the four Kumaras, they can go outside this bubble universe, they can travel to all the other universes. So there's myriads of universes that are there. All that is there is part of the Lord's creation. But how much of a part of the Lord's creation is just 1/4? This Mahatattva is just 1/4. And the other 3/4 are all Vaikuntha planets there. So you can travel in these Vaikuntha planets unrestrictedly, we're told here in the purport. And how good would that be? That we have all these planets that we can visit. There's some planets that the devotees are always with the Lord. Other planets we go to, we see this wonderful opulence that is the same as the Lord's. Then we visit other planets where the residents have the same bodily features as the Lord. Other planets, just the residents are residing in the same planet as the Lord, just having the Lord living on the same planet yourself, or to speak, in the same country or in the same town. That's just amazing. So not only that, but everybody, wherever you go, everybody just singing the praises of the Lord. So that means there's a festival going on everywhere you go. So it's just unlimited. And because of the nature of it, it's eternal. So it's ever fresh. It never ceases. So we can understand a little bit more about Ananta with his 1,000 hoods, trying to describe the glories of the Lord and never ever being able to come to an end. So that is what is Lord Brahma is seeing here in text 14. I'll just read 15 if I may, Krishna Kirtan, because there's no purport to it, and that's in relation with this. I was going to read it earlier. Lord Brahma saw in the Vaikuntha planets the personality of Godhead. Oh no, sorry. Text 13. 14. So there's no purport to this. The goddess of fortune in her transcendental form is engaged in the loving service of the Lord's lotus feet, and being moved by the black bees follows a spring. She is not only engaged in variegated pleasure, service to the Lord, along with the constant companions, but also engaged in singing the glories of the Lord's activities. So, with just a few minutes left, I'm just going to, instead of asking you for any questions or comments, I'm going to put it to you, the audience here, that these Vaikuntha planets sound very nice indeed, and you know, once you go there, you're liberated and you're free to travel wherever you like. You know, and we're just sitting here, we're worshipping the Lord, but actually, does the thrill of going to Vaikuntha in any way sort of appeal to anybody? So, has anybody got a comment that they can make on that? How do you feel about Vaikuntha as a film? Wouldn't you like to go there, say, Steph, go to Vaikuntha and check it out there?
Is it that you can't, if you don't make it to Goloka Vrindavan, is it, if you don't make it to Goloka Vrindavan, then you end up in Vaikuntha, right? Is it?
It's like that. It says that for the devotees in complete service to the Lord, the liberation is waiting with folded hands ready to serve. So it's not only the impersonal, but the Vaikuntha liberation. So for the devotee, yeah, sure, if you want to go there, do go there. So I'm just putting it out there. Why wouldn't you want to go there? Has anybody got a comment to make on that? You're the pundit. I just want anybody else to sort of give me some sort of prompt why we're here and doing what we do.
Isn't Goloka Vrindavan more attractive though for a devotee?
Well,
it's not the awe and reverence. It's the more intimate, personal relationship with Krishna in familiarity and natural affection.
That's very much put in a nutshell. So I can just, I've only got a couple of minutes, so I can give one story that might describe enhance what you're doing. First of all, I want to say that Krishna, the hint is there that the goddess of fortune, the person is serving Krishna with love and affection there, and is reciprocating that affection to each one of them, whereas the ladies in Vaikuntha, they don't actually get to have that personal embrace of the Lord because they're betrothed to their husbands, so they're just serving in awe and reverence. So there was one case, there was the main story in the Srimad Bhagavatam is when Gopi Kumar, he actually goes to Vaikuntha because he's a coward boy, he's looking for Krishna, he's been everywhere looking for Krishna. He goes to Vaikuntha and he's got his cowboy boy clothes on, and all the residents are saying, hey, dress up a bit, you're underdressed here, we've all got opulence here, and you've just got a flute and that, we'll dress you up. He goes, no, I'm fine. And then he gets to see Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu is so amazingly beautiful that he starts running up to him to embrace him. And they're all holding him back. You can't embrace the Lord. He's actually, he's our king and he's our Lord and Master. We're just serving nicely from afar. We may be lucky if we touch his lotus feet. So we're sort of eager to embrace him. And then the Lord, he says, no, you don't belong here. Keep looking for your journey. So ultimately, after going to Ayodhya and going to Dwarka, he ends up in Vrindavan, right? And he's on this dusty path in Vrindavan. And he's looking around and he asks some resident, he sees a resident just stunned there. And he asked the resident, he said, have you seen the Lord of my heart? Govinda? Is it Govinda or Gopal? See the Lord of my heart? And the resident's not saying anything, just stunned, he's just looking there out to the west. And he asks somebody else, and somebody else is stunned also. He's not getting answer from anybody. He's walking around asking all these people, and they're just all mesmerised. And all of a sudden they hear the sound of the flute to come wafting through the air. And then everybody comes animated. Oh, he's coming. And all of a sudden they start running around, and then you see this big dust storm. There is dust in Vrindavan. They roll in the dust of Vrindavan. They enjoy it, spiritual dust, right? So it's coming closer and closer, and then they see the shape of the cows and the cowboys, and they see beautiful lightning flash of Krishna coming there. And everybody's just so animated, like the life and soul's been brought back into them. And then from the distance, Krishna sees Gopa Kumar, and he starts running towards him. Gopa starts running towards him, and they embrace in the middle, and they both faint. Krishna faints, and Gopa Kumar faints, and then all the cowboy boys are standing around. Who is this person? What's he done to our Krishna? What's going on here? And Lord Balaram, of course, all-knowing, explains, he's a devotee, he's just come from the material world, and he's in ecstasy. And so he gets Gopa Kumar to touch Krishna or something. They wake up Krishna anyway. And then Krishna's so happy to see go. So this is the relationship between Krishna and devotees. So this is what where we have such a wonderful opportunity to actually engage in a personal association with the Lord, which is much, much higher than what is there, the liberation of Vaikuntha. As I said, liberation is waiting with folded hands to serve the devotee should he need it. So we should just keep trying and chant Hare Krishna and trying to get a drop of nectar from Krishna's lotus feet. Anything else? Got 2 minutes? Yes, Krishna Kirtan.
Just a comment on what Rupa Prabhu was saying. Reality really tells when Gopamara ends up in Vaikuntha, the reason he ends up there is because he still considers his Gopal, he considers him his Lord. So because he still had that mood, I'm looking for my Lord, then he ends up in Vaikuntha rather than Goloka. So it was just that point that Prabhu was making. As long as there's that little hint of awe and reverence, you end up in Vaikuntha. So that's just the point.
Thank you very much.